games any more lower tiered. We get the Bengals and Jags. We'll see how tonight goes. Maybe it'll be a great game, Maybe it'll be a terrible game. I guess we'll find out. Kyle, you might as well be a staple of the show, my man. It seems like from the offseason, you just carried over to the in-season. And, of course, we have our co-host, Devin Deal, who's on. You can find him at Twitter at Devin Deal. And, of course, Kyle Senra. If you don't know him by now, I don't know what you're doing, but it is Senra Says on Twitter. Hey, guys, Thursday Night Football, Week 4. It feels like this season's going by pretty fast. We're already 3 weeks in already.
I know, right? That's at least we got an extra week this year. You know what I mean? So we get a little bit longer. So,
by the way, I'm curious. Do you guys have any of your leagues playoff games in Week 17?
No,
Yep.
I don't.
I think most of them are. The championship. I think in most leagues. Week 18? No. No, I don't think any leagues. I think if anything, they push back to Week 17 championship, but I don't think I'm in any leagues where it's a Week 18 championship. Really should check that, but again, at this point, it's all about the regular season, right? It's all about getting to the playoffs, not the playoffs itself. So
this is very true, because once you make the playoffs, you never know what's going to happen. Speaking of teams making the playoffs, the Carolina Panthers are off to a pretty decent start here, and they are yet to trail in a single game. They have not had a single play trailing, which is ridiculous, even though it's only 3 games, but that's a pretty crazy stat. But anyway, let's talk about Chuba Hubbard, Chubby, whatever you want to call this guy. So CMC, of course, went down with a hamstring injury. These soft tissue injuries are usually pretty concerning and do tend to linger a little bit. Unless you're Will Fuller, who just somehow survives them after the season. So guys, from a dynasty standpoint, obviously Chuba Hubbard was the hot ad if he was on the waiver wire in Dynasty. Although in Dynasty, I don't think any handcuff should be on waiver wire, first of all. But in case he was and someone picked them up, and from a Dynasty standpoint, he is – one, give me a take on what his value is. Like, if you were trading for him, let's say CMC comes back and he's fully healthy. What are you trading Chuba Hubbard for? And then should CMC owners be concerned from a dynasty perspective? Because now this is his second season now, back-to-back years, where he has missed time due to injuries. Although this is not as significant as last year, but how concerned should we be? Kyle, we'll start with you.
So in terms of concern, you have to be concerned with any running back when they reach a certain age cliff. Like basically, once they're off their rookie contracts, you have to accept the clock's kind of ticking. That being said, McCaffrey and Cook were still the most, in a lot of places, the top 2 dynasty running backs entering the season, with Kamara as a clear third. And those are 2017 guys. They're all past their rookie contracts now. So you would think we should be lower on them, but because they just keep producing, McCaffrey, if he's on the field, he's producing so solidly that at this point, I still have him as the dynasty RB1. So concerned enough to move him down the rankings? No, but should you be looking to sell high? I would say sure, in the sense that you should always be looking to sell high at players when they're at their peak, when they're at the number 1 player at any position. That's probably the best time to sell them. So in that sense, it's been the best time to sell McCaffrey over the last 3 seasons. So nothing's really changed. This injury doesn't really change it for me.
Devin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think if you do have Chuba and the owner is out there looking to get him, I think you could easily get a 2nd-round pick out of him. I doubt you'd be able to get a first, just depending on how long CMC's injury is going to be. But these things tend to linger, like you said. They could be anywhere from a couple weeks. He could pull it again. We've seen that happen with multiple players, to where this could be something that lasts, a lot farther than the projected timeline. So, if you own Chuba right now, I would be looking to at least get a second. I think that's actually doable. But I would be a little scared if I was a CMC owner. This is the 2nd year in a row, very early on in the season, where he has done the exact same injury. So it's starting to become a problem, and he is approaching the age cliff. So I would be a little concerned.
I don't think this is the same injury, though. I believe last year was a high ankle sprain. No. This year it's a hamstring.
Oh, you're right. Didn't he pull it later on in the season, though? I'm pretty sure.
I thought that was a shoulder. I thought it was.
Yeah. No, you're right.
But, that is, again, he's gone through 3 different injuries. To be fair, now he's got all these body parts that are not 100%. I don't know if is it worse that if it was the same injury 3 times over, or is it 3 different ones? I don't know if it's better or worse, to be honest.
So I got a question for you guys. So we're talking about CMC's usage and his touches. He's already over 1,000 total touches for his career. at the age of 25. In comparison, Zeke's only a year older, and this is pretty insane. He's already at 1,700 touches. That's over 700 more in this, and they're only a 1 year gap. Only a 1 year gap between the two. So that's pretty insane when it comes to touches. I don't think I would be too concerned from a touch standpoint. However, I would be a little concerned given that this is the second time he's gotten hurt, and especially his hamstring injuries. Soft tissue injuries are always concerning to me, especially at his position and the amount of touches that he gets. So it would not surprise me at all if the Panthers took their time with him, especially if Chuba can actually perform well in this game. If you were trading for Chuba, what would you offer for him today?
I mean, if I'm offering, I always like to. I don't like to offer disrespectful offers, but I like to lowball at least to see what we're going to start with. I mean, I think anywhere from a late second to a third rounder is pretty fair for if you're looking at a 1 or 2 week rental, which is what he is basically at the moment, unless there's a setback. So, I mean, if I own Chuba, like I said earlier, I at least want a second.
Kyle?
Because you got to think he was probably a third round pick in most rookie drafts. In Superflex, maybe even slipped to the fourth, but I think in a lot of leagues probably would have been common to see him go in the third round of rookie drafts. So you'd want to at least recoup that value. But I mean, right now he seems more valuable than he would have been the player, like the entity known as Chuba Hubbard during the rookie draft. So I think a second is fair. Now, Hamid, in our Dynasty League that we're in together, we actually saw a Chuba Hubbard trade go down. I know Gerson did it. I know Gerson is usually here likes to watch Giant in. I haven't seen him in the chat yet, but if he is, maybe we'll ask him a bit later. But Gerson bought Chuba for a 2023 second and Josh Palmer. And again, this is Superflex, so I would argue that the rookie picks are more valuable in Superflex than they are in single quarterback. So that's maybe on the higher end of what it would take to acquire Chuba. So I mean, in that same league, I also gave up a first for Tyson Williams. That seems like this seems like a smarter investment by Gerson, to be fair. So, but yeah, I think that's kind of a good going price, the good range for a second to a second plus, like a second plus another rookie or,
hey guys,
a young wide receiver.
Sorry, I gotta cut you off real quick. We have a little bit of a breaking news here. Inactives are out. Carlos Hyde is inactive.
Yeah, I noticed that before coming on.
This backfield is all going to be James Robinson today. So if that window you were looking at for James Robinson to buy low is practically gone at this point, because we're expecting him to be a 3-down back, and he's going to have the volume now, essentially. This is really surprising and about time, we've all been waiting for this to happen. Sorry, I know we're going off topic a little bit, but I feel this is worth talking about. Guys, and you know what? Let's just jump right into our Thursday night conversation, and we can jump back to some of the news we want to talk about real quick, since this news does break here right now. And, of course, we're coming close on the game anyway. So Thursday night, let's ask this question. With James Robinson now, especially to hold pretty much be a 3-down back, is this the opportunity we have? One, what type of efficiency are we going to expect from him? Urban Meyer's offense is a little bit more pass heavy. And, of course, that's because the defense is really bad. I mean, last year the defense was just as bad, too. Are we expecting similar output from James Robinson this week and moving forward if he keeps the 3-down role?
It's just the offense, right? Like that offense could get so bad to where the points aren't being scored. Now that they have, one thing is they really haven't been good in the red zone throwing. So at least when they get close, it seems like the best option is to run it with him. So maybe it's now, does the coaching staff know that and to overuse him? But I mean, he should get the volume. That was his whole thing last year. I mean, he volumed his way to, at some points in the year, being a top 5 running back. Now his offense might be worse than what it was last year. So maybe that's a little much, but I think he could be a top 12 running back on any given week. Again, as long as he gets that passing down work. I think that's the key there, right? To get those targets. Because if they give him 250 carries over the season and he's averages just over 3 yards a carry and he's not scoring enough, that's not really going to do it, even though that's a lot of carries. You really do want to see him get the targets.
Devin, I got a question for you, man.
Yeah.
Rest of season, not Dynasty. Let's talk about rest of season for one moment. Marvin Jones or Laviska Shenault, and why?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think rest of season, personally, I'm going Marvin Jones. I think he's already established his rapport with Lawrence, and Laviska, I mean, he's the gimmicky one. He'll get in the backfield. He'll do some runs, and I mean, he has definitely the bigger dynasty upside. But rest of season, I think it's kind of hard to argue over Marvin at the moment. I think he's the clear cut wide receiver one on that team.
Oh, and okay, so real quick, we also do have a question here, and this is impacting Thursday night game in itself. Herbert, Harris, Metcalf, Sutton, Higbee, Claypool, benches Dalvin Cook, A.J. Brown, Pittman, Marvin Jones. What do you think of my lineup, guys? So essentially asking for a breakdown here. Devin, I'll kick this off to you to start off. What are your first thoughts about his lineup when you see it?
Well, I think he's got a really good team. It's just unfortunate it looks like he's battling some injuries at the moment. But I mean, I like the moves there. I mean, Dalvin is, he's questionable. He's not been ruled out yet. So I mean, there's no one in his lineup yet that's going to prevent him from being able to swap that out if that does happen. Same with AJ Brown. I think I would start Claypool over Pittman and Marvin Jones at the moment. The Bengals have actually a pretty sneaky defense here at the early on in the season. And Claypool last week with Deontay Johnson out had a huge week. It is going to prevent you from being able to swap that out if Deontay does come back, because Deontay does look like he practiced, I think, today.
He did practice, that's
fashion.
correct. He got to get a limited practice.
So, I mean, his target share might go down if Deontay is definitely back. So that is something to watch for. But as it sits right now, I think you're making the best decision you can.
Kyle, here's a question for you. Do you think he should start Marvin Jones over Claypool?
Yeah, I'm going to say no. I think if we knew that Deontay Johnson was playing, I think we might change that answer to yes. But because at this point we don't know, and it's not as if, like, Pittman's playable. I mean, the Colts offense doesn't look the greatest right now, but he's at least, if you need to, you can put him in. So, like, let's say you're not feeling confident if Deontay Johnson comes back, the quarterback situation, I could see going Pittman over Claypool in that sense. So you still have that option. So I think the most flexibility to the lineup right now would be leaving Marvin Jones on the bench and waiting to make that decision. Because by the time you're ready to make that decision, maybe Dalvin Cook or AJ Brown has been ruled in. It seems like probably not. So, but I think John, you're prepared if they don't. That keep Sutton, keep Claypool in for now and Sutton, and if you need to, Pittman can kind of be an emergency drop-in option if things don't look so good.
Given that, would you suggest any updates he needs to make to his roster?
Well, I'll see the full roster, but I mean, making sure a backup quarterback on Herbert would be nice, especially if it's single quarterback. If you can't get Derek Carr, I might just pick up Chase Daniel, the Chargers backup. If Herbert doesn't go, then just plug in Chase Daniel Monday night. At least you don't take a 0. Or pick up any other quarterback you think has a good matchup and just play them instead of Herbert this week.
Is Herbert hurt?
I know he's questionable, right? Those Monday night questionable ones, they're a little concerning. I know every league I have Herbert in, I've either gone and picked up Chase Daniel or one league I already had Derek Carr. So that's a natural, if Herbert's out, just play Carr instead type thing. So I just prepare yourself in case, because it's a Monday night, it's isolated. You don't really have many options later on in the week. So make sure you kind of take care of it now and make some decisions now. So maybe that means benching Herbert if you can't stomach it. Although I feel like Chase Daniel's available in every league. So in the event Herbert doesn't go, you should be able to just pick up Chase Daniel and slot him in. Just make sure you do that now while you still have the players to drop and no one gets locked. Like, it might be one where you have to drop Marvin Jones to pick up Chase Daniel, knowing that he gets locked tonight, and then no one can pick him up until next week, and maybe you put a waiver claim in if you really want Marvin Jones. Although,
getting all your sneaky secrets.
Like Devin said, though, like, the roster's stacked, so you might be able to afford that. Like, you might not. It depends who else they have on the bench too. But yeah, I'd look to just ensure the Herbert either with Derek Carr or Chase Daniel.
All right, thank you for that, John. I hope we helped you out there and cleared up some of your roster concerns and gave you feedback that you're happy with. All right, moving on to the next topic, Jalen Hurts, fellas. Now, he has been a QB1 every week of the season so far. All 3 weeks he's finished QB 10 or better. However, in real football, though, he hasn't been very good if you watch him on the field play. This offense as a whole has struggled a ton. The play calling has been questionable. Here's a question for you guys. From a dynasty standpoint, how confident on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident, are you that Jalen Hurts actually keeps the job the entire season?
I'm confident as long as they don't make a trade. I don't think he has to worry about Minshew. I think they're going to ride it out for the season, keep him on display, and maybe make a off-season move. I know there's been some rumors out there actually today that they're interested in maybe pulling the trigger on Deshaun Watson. So I saw that earlier. So it definitely kind of makes you think. But even if that would happen, he's still going to be the starter with the Texans. But overall, I've never been the biggest Hurts guy. Coming out of college, I wasn't that big of a fan.
Really?
And then the NFL, he hasn't really shown me all that much. I mean, he's definitely serviceable, but I still don't think you're looking at a very long-term quarterback unless he starts to take some of those progressions in the passing game.
Kyle, what's your take about Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, I think basically, confidence out of 10 that he's going to start the rest of the year, probably 9. Again, I could see maybe a scenario where they do choose to just see what they have in Minshew once he knows the playbook. That'll be definitely late in the season, probably once they're eliminated from the playoffs. Like, I could see that where if they know they're going to move on from Jalen Hurts next year, they could decide, okay, let's see what we have in Minshew, at least see if we want to keep him around as the main backup there or clean house completely. But outside of that, the trading for Watson thing, I guess that is maybe the biggest risk because I don't know, Devin. I'm not sure that the Texans want Jalen Hurts back. I think they want as many picks, as many liquid assets as possible, and they don't like it, if they trade for Jalen Hurts, they almost feel like they have to go with him. Now, if the Texans are doing better than we expect and they can't get one of the top, 5, top 10 picks, well, yeah, okay, they'll probably get a top 10 pick. But if they can't get a top 5 pick next year and they not locked into to one of the better QB prospects, they might then want Jalen Hurts, thinking that that's kind of their best option. But I think for now, they still might see the draft class next year as being their best way to get a quarterback. And so whatever they get from Watson is stuff they want that's going to help them either get the first overall pick or enough ammunition to trade up for it.
All right, and we do have a question in here. Who are some of the captains for tonight? I'm assuming this is a DFS question.
Yeah, sounds like a showdown slate
I don't
question.
play DFS on Thursdays or Mondays, so I'm not too familiar with this concept. I'll let you guys, I'm assuming, are a bit more familiar than I am.
Mostly right now, it's mostly CFL DFS for me, to be honest. I'll take a look at the showdown slates right now just to see what the prices are. If there's anything that stands out to me.
What the concept of the captains are?
I am. I've played this before, but I haven't not played this game, so I don't actually know what the price points are right now. So I can look that up as well, and maybe we can get you an answer here in a little bit.
What is a captain? For those who don't know, like myself, I don't.
So they cost more than the regular price, but they also score more.
Yeah,
so
I think it's
like
1.5.
So there's a multiplier for them.
Yeah. And it also
multiplier
and
price and points. So you do have to invest as part of the tricky
so
thing.
Richard is thinking either Chark, I'm assuming as DJ Chark, Boyd, or Robinson. In my opinion, I'm assuming Robinson's price has not gone up a whole lot from when this news came out. So I'd be curious to know what his price is. And based on that,
they would definitely not have changed the price for when it's looking, his normal price is $9,400. Now, for reference sake, the highest player on the slate is $11,600. So, they still had. I mean, he's 800 Jamar Chase, but I think I'm looking right now. Tyler Boyd's value to me, he's at 7,400. That's one where it seems like that was priced because they have Higgins listed, and Higgins is actually more expensive than Boyd. So that looks like one where that price was set before we knew Higgins was out. So that's one I think I'd like to exploit as either for sure in the lineup. But yeah, I think Boyd as the captain makes a lot of sense, and for sure would want to stack that with Burrow.
It would not surprise me at all if Boyd finished higher in fantasy points than Chase this week. It would not surprise me at all.
I just traded for Tyler Boyd in a dynasty league, so I gave up 2023 second, which I thought was a pretty fair price.
That's a great value, I think.
Yeah, I would make that same trade.
There's no negotiating. I made that offer and they accepted, right? So I think that was one we both saw that as a fair price. So that was a pretty easy trade to get done.
I would have valued him a little bit higher than that. I would have wanted a high second, not mid to late second. But hey, that's a good value you got there.
Well, thanks for assuming it's going to be mid to late.
Well, that's the thing, though, about these when you're trading picks. If I don't know for sure what I'm getting, if I don't know for sure what type of value is with this pick, I'd rather not make a trade with the pick. But you can project teams based on how they look that, hey, if it's a high second pick, then great. If not, then I don't want to take that risk. I'd rather have something a little bit more known than that. But Nonetheless, picks have value. We've seen that every single year in rookie drafts. But okay, so now moving on to our next topic here. So talking about the DeAndre Swift. Okay, so I think we all underrated him for sure. None of us had him projected as high as he's going right now in fantasy. He's, I believe, he's top 3 amongst all running backs in fantasy points scored so far, I believe. So let me just cut right to the chase. Do you guys think this is sustainable? And 2, from a dynasty standpoint, is this as high as it's going to get? Is this the time to actually sell? Devin, I'll start with you.
From a dynasty aspect, I really don't like selling running backs when they're this young. I mean, he's on his rookie contract. I think he's still only 22 years old at the moment. And he's already performing. He came out with a great pass catching repertoire to him, and he's shown it every single week. And I think he still is the lead back there. I mean, he's out snapping Jamal Williams every week, not by a whole lot, but he still is. And I think they have big plans for him. Right now, they're just down so much that he's not getting the rushing attempts, but every week he's contributing greatly in the pass game, which is why he is so high currently on the running back rankings. So to me, I would be keeping him. I don't want to sell anyone this young. Running back is notorious for a position of being shallow on dynasty teams as well as injury prone. So if you have someone like this, unless someone blows you away with an offer, I don't think I would be in the business of selling right now.
Kyle.
I mean, last year he was pretty efficient touchdown wise too. I think okay, maybe downgrade from Goff to Stafford, but I think overall an offense that didn't perform as well. The offensive line was decent, but it seems like it's performing as a really strong unit right now. And so I mean that's kind of what you want, right? You want a running back, young, like you said, in his second year, who will get volume because targets are worth more than carries, and the offensive line is solid enough that when he does get those carries, those will come. The only downside is he's splitting the goal line duties with Jamal Williams. But I mean, last year we were splitting the goal line duties with Adrian Peterson, and I mean, he still managed to score 8 touchdowns. So DeAndre Swift, as I think at points in this offseason, is a top 5 dynasty running back. So to me, top 12, that I've already kind of had him there. Like that's not really like what he's doing now is what I've expected him to do. So I'm not surprised by this production. So I've kind of been planning for that. So if I've got him on my teams, I kind of and probably want to ride this production out. So I would sell if you're getting top 5 running back dynasty price, but if no one's going to give you that price, then I'd rather hold.
To introduce a trade offer that was proposed to one of our league mates I saw, and this was declined.
Okay.
DeAndre Hopkins and CEH for Swift. That was declined. Would that be enough for you to take the deal, Devin?
That's very intriguing. It's very close. A lot of these are very subjective to how your team's already made up, everything like that. But if you're just talking value to value, I'd probably still lean towards no. I wouldn't accept it. It's right there. It's very close. But I think it's more of me being a little more down on CEH after the last year and a half than it is the actual fairness of the trade, because it's right there. I don't think it's an unfair trade. Preference-wise, I think I would hang on to Swift.
Kyle, there's
the
an
value
RB
might actually
there.
be. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, right. Yeah, you're getting the replacement of running back value. Is it exactly the same exact replacement? I mean, it might not be that far off. I think value-wise, that might actually be the side on CH Hopkins, but it's about the process, right? Like, again, what do you want for Swift? I feel like you could be the deal you want for Swift, right? Like, I kind of almost feel the same way. I'd rather get CEH for sure, something more liquid than DeAndre Hopkins, either a younger receiver or just straight up give me a draft pick instead that I can go and buy another whatever receiver I want with.
All right, I'm going to name a few wide receivers to you guys, and you tell me if you prefer the wide receiver or Swift. Okay?
Straight up? I think there's a receiver. Oh, there's no receiver. I prefer straight up over Swift. Like you do.
Really?
I won't.
So
like, I won't sell. I'm not selling Swift for Tyreek Hill. Like I want the running back.
So there's no receiver at all. That straight up. You
straight up for Swift? No way.
Devin,
dynasty running back.
Boat?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, like I said, it all depends on your team matchup. But I think if you do CEH and then name off some receivers, we could probably get you what would actually be done. But I
You know what?
agree.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it, Devin. You
right.
throw me a curveball. Let's roll with it, man. All right. So the caveat is CEH is in this offer. So it's
Yes.
DeAndre Swift on one side. We got CEH, and here are the receivers I'm going to name: Tyler Lockett.
No.
Kyle. No. Justin Jefferson.
Yes.
Ooh. Yeah. I'd probably do that one. Yeah.
Okay, so that's one. I need one more here. Metcalf.
Yes, from me.
Yeah, I think so too. That's the line probably for me. But yeah,
Is that the line for you?
I don't think I'd
Kyle?
go any lower than Metcalf. Yeah.
So no. Okay, so Calvin Ridley.
No.
He's thinking about it. This is so interesting.
Yeah.
But I thought I'm not going to do it for Ridley kind of thing. I think it's too far over the age cliff.
It's
Okay,
beginning of
so
the
that's
season.
something
I
you
probably
should
would. Beginning of the season, I probably would have said yes to that. But right now, Matt Ryan does
inside
not
of
look
knowing.
good.
You're right.
AJ Brown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's a definite. That was a quick yes. Okay,
well,
so I think
I have Jefferson, Metcalf, and Brown all like next to each other in Dynasty rank. So like those, like that's kind of an easy tier. If I'm going to say yes to one, I say yes to all three. Like CeeDee Lamb, that might be the line right there. I think CeeDee Lamb's
that was the next name, and that was going to be my last name.
Okay.
CeeDee Lamb was going to be my last name. Because I think you both will say no to Terry McLaurin, right?
Yeah, I would say
that one's
no
close
to Terry.
Yeah.
The only
I'd
reason
probably
I'm saying
say
no to Terry is just because he's 25, going to be 26. The other
Correct.
guys that are in
He's
this
pretty
discussion, the other guys in this discussion are 23, 22. You know what I mean? So there's a difference there.
I also like the quarterbacks that all guys are tied to a lot more. I know Jefferson might not have Cousins that long term, but is in Washington. So I think, I'd say yes to Lamb, but no to McLaurin. That's really kind of the line there.
Agreed.
All right. Fair enough, guys. Let's move right along. Let's talk about some games now, guys.
So
go ahead,
I just quickly decided to go on DraftKings, try and put up a lineup. Boyd as the captain. Pretty viable one I ended up with was Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, James Robinson, DJ Chark, and then Auden. $400 is kind of just like a throw in to make it all work. If no T. Higgins, maybe Tate gets apps. I know he really hasn't done much this year, but again, it's to get all those other guys in the lineup. Like you need at the end, like the guys that are cheaper, Luke Farrell, who's Tim Jones, like Laquan Treadwell, like those are the only guys cheaper than Auden Tate. So
I didn't even know
he's a name, but
target. He was on the field for half the snaps, only ran 9 routes, and saw 1 target last week.
So I think it's not the best guy, but yeah, at only $4 when to make all that work, we can get Boyd, Burrow, and Chase, and then still Robinson. And I know they mentioned DJ Chark. So
Mixon in your lineup at all?
No, I mess around and see if it works. You probably can't make it work with Jamar Chase though. So that's why I want to go with the catching. Like I want Burrow, Boyd, and Chase, thinking like, give me four or 5 Burrow touchdowns, and they all could maybe went to Auden Tate. I kind of drew that narrative. You can probably make it work with Mixon. Probably won't be able to get
James Robinson. I don't think you need Mixon per se.
Yeah, you have to choose, I think, because Mixon's actually the second most expensive player. Like he's more expensive than Chase. That's why better option to go with Chase and get the 3 pass catchers. I mean, I'll try a Boyd Burrow mix and see what I can get if I put Chark in.
That line.
Okay, this one's actually not bad. This one's not bad. Burrow. So again, both of these are Tyler Boyd as the captain. I think I've identified that is the best value to be captain. So Boyd is captain, Burrow, Mixon, Chark, Marvin, and Auden Tate as that last guy.
Now
so you basically substitute Jones and Jones and Mixon for James Robinson and Jamar Chase. Cycle between those two. But that would be like, again, I haven't done much prep on this one. I kind of just did it, but like just setting the lineups, that's about the best I could come up with in these last few minutes.
All right. So by the way, FYI for everybody, Tyler Lockett was downgraded to a did not practice. That is really, really, really concerning for him. I believe he is dealing with a hip injury, so just keep an eye out for that for everybody who has Tyler Lockett in redraft and Dynasty alike. We all play this week. So, all right, going to the games, fellas, for week 4. Devin, I'll let you start it off. What is the game you are most focused on and want to let our listeners know about the most?
Right off the bat, I'm going to go Panthers and Cowboys. I mean, there's a plethora of offensive talent on both sides of this game, and we're going to find out how real the Carolina Panthers are. I mean, to me, the Cowboys, I'm not a Cowboy fan, but they really looked the part this year. I mean, they hung tough with Tampa Bay, and now, they've been going pretty well the last few weeks. So I think this is a very interesting, a lot of offensive scoring out there. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. But I'm interested to see if, like, Darnold, can he keep this up? Because right now, he's been written off for years in the Dynasty community, and right now
Really?
his value is, come back, very strong. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. I mean, the Cowboys defense has taken a step forward this year. So DJ Moore has been doing very well as well this year to start off. And it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep feeding him or if someone like Chuba is going to come into play, if he's going to take more of a role, like a CMC role, or is anyone like that just going to step up. So I'm very interested from the Panther side of the ball. But then, you have all your big players. You have Dak, Zeke, Pollard, Lamb, Cooper. I mean, you name it. And this game has so many options. A lot of people are going to be looking at this game. But I think it's going to be a very exciting game. I think it's going to be a shootout. I think the Cowboys eventually end up winning. But I think fantasy purposes wise, I think all these players are in for some very big days.
Hubbard did come into the game, and he did have 11 carries and 5 targets and 3 red zone carries. So he realized a ton in that Texans game for those who watched that game. So to your point, I expect him to be heavily utilized regardless of game script in this game. So with that said, Devin, one quick question for you with this game. Who's the one player outside of the obvious ones that you are most intrigued on or people should be looking out for in this game?
I'm going to go with Robbie Anderson. He's been having a very bad start to the year. I have a feeling that DJ Moore is going to be seeing a lot of coverage, probably double coverage on a lot of different plays, given how strong he has started the season. So if any time is for Robbie Anderson to show up is going to be this week. So if he doesn't do stuff this week, you might be looking at you need to trade him or get rid of him because it's not looking like that rapport is there with Darnold anymore.
In Dynasty, that really kills his value a ton. But to your point, I agree with you. If there's a week for Robbie Anderson to show up, it is this week. But also, he hasn't been even seeing the targets. Like last week, he wasn't seeing the targets at all. So the concern isn't necessarily, he's not performing with the targets like AJ Green last year. He's not even getting the targets. He only had, I think, 2 targets. One he dropped, and the one, unfortunately, caught for 8 yards. So there is definitely a ton of concern there for Robbie Anderson. So we'll see what happens.
To be fair, AJ Green had over 100 targets last year, so he did see the targets.
Yeah, that's correct. It was somewhere.
Which
right.
I mean, for Anderson to do what he did last year, though, it took like 136 targets, I think, for him to be what was he a top? Did he make it as a top 10 wide receiver last year? I think he was definitely a top 15.
He was close.
It was just volume. But I wonder how much of that was tied to being out. So I think this is a key week for him with McCaffrey out now. Do they game plan him that short dump off type catch, or do they just give it to Hubbard? Right? I mean, maybe the rookie running back already takes that from him. If not, like look for these to be the weeks where Anderson's probably most playable. And if he doesn't get McCaffrey's out, he might be droppable in redraft. To be honest, I know.
But in Dynasty,
I've toyed with it a couple.
But as a Dynasty owner, do you hold them? You don't have a choice, really, do you?
Yeah.
No, I think assuming it's deep rosters, right? Because generally most Dynasty leagues are going to have deeper rosters or deeper bench spots than redraft leagues, so you probably have enough spots to do it. I mean, I guess Dynasty league, if you really need to pick someone else up, then it might not be the worst thing in the world if he's kind of already, again, getting that higher age cliff, and he's already, like what he did last year was probably the best, and it didn't even really increase his value much. So even if he bounces back, what kind of Dynasty value does he hold anymore? I think the stink at the start of this year kind of a permanent stink that it kind of just prevents his value reaching what it was last year.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to our next game. Kyle, give us a game that you are most intrigued in and players we should be careful about or be aware of, for that matter.
Well, and you've already hinted at it with Tyler Lockett. It's the Seahawks 49ers game. I mean, first off, that I think in general that like both of those both NFC West or all four NFC West facing each other this week. Like it's two NFC West division games between the Seahawks, 49ers, and then the Rams and Cardinals. So I think that's alone, because that division, who knows who's going to finish fourth? Maybe all four teams make the playoffs. Like literally anything is possible with that division. So watching those games is always fun anyway. But certainly now, when all four teams being really competitive, for the Seahawks, Niners, I guess it seems like there's a bit of a sourness to Garoppolo. Like fans are wondering if Trey Lance is going to come in. I thought he played pretty well against the Packers, and I mean, he kind of did what he needed to lead them to a fourth quarter drive, score a touchdown in the final minute of the game to take the lead, and did Rodgers to Adams, kind of over and over again. Eventually works to give the Packers the win. It was, but then we've also seen, because I've also heard, why don't you just, because like they couldn't just kick a field goal, right? They needed to score a touchdown. So at a certain point, you just have to score when you can score, because like touchdowns aren't just like freely given. You like wait this long and then score a touchdown. Like you do that and you drain the clock and you throw one play and you don't get it, it's done, game over, you lose, right? So I think they like it was there was another team where it was maybe a little worse. I guess the Chargers, right? Because the Chargers could have drained it and won with a field goal with a touchdown. So that one, I get you there, Hamid. But at a certain point, they need a touchdown, and again, you have to touchdown whenever you have the opportunity to do it. So yeah, maybe they could have drained more clock, but by doing that, does the defense get an extra second to kind of read the play or get more settled, score the touchdown, and then they lose, and then you wonder, why'd you waste so much time not scoring, right? You can second guess it either way, but offensively, they did what they needed to. So look for him this week. I know there's I think one of the I can't remember who it is. I think Lamar Jackson's questionable, and so I think in a league, Garoppolo is kind of the Jackson emergency backup, because it's a game, so not as many options to replace Jackson against the Seahawks. I think high enough upside for pass catching shootouts. So look for a guy like Brandon Ayuk, who kind of broke out this year, kind of showing the first 2 weeks maybe it was him recovering from injury. Yeah. But anyway, I think look for all those guys to perform well. Kittle, Debo. I guess Kittle's questionable as well. That's another guy you want to, a 4 o'clock game at a onesie position. Be careful. Like I know in a couple leagues I'm in, I went and picked up Max as they're starting at 4 o'clock Eastern. So if we know Kittle's out, then it's a something that you'll know you can replace him with. Whereas again, with the onesie positions, like quarterback end, so like Herbert on Monday night or Kittle here at the 4 o'clock as a tight end, your options to replace them are limited, and you got to make sure you have them ready, because if you get stuck where that, like, Kittle's your only player you can drop in order to pick a tight end, you basically have to take the 0, because you're not going to, you could pick up, hope he gets a touchdown, but you're losing out on George Kittle as like dropping him to the rest of the league. At that point, you're better off 0, honestly. So set yourself up now so where that doesn't happen. So if you need to drop a random wide receiver, Max Williams, to make sure you have a tight end, and I'm just using Max Williams as an example, because again, that's kind of what I saw in my leagues, is the 4 o'clock tight ends or the ones playing Sunday or Monday night that were available. He was one of the best ones. Donald Parham's lying around. So something like that as kind of a replacement for Kittle. But I think Chris Carson could easily be a top 10 running back this week. The 49ers in the red zone have been more vulnerable on the ground, than through the air. And so far, the Seahawks have had more success running inside the 5 than they have passing inside the 5. So those two things kind of together, if the Seahawks can get into scoring, I think it'll be a lot of Chris Carson, especially with Metcalf and Lockett both banged up. Like I've my weekly rankings, I'm pretty low, much lower than consensus on both this week. I've got DK at wide receiver, Tyler Lockett at wide receiver 21. So I kind of see this as more of a Chris Carson game than anything. So I'm looking for that to be, maybe Lockett will disappoint a little bit. Again, 21, not meaning to bench him. But like you said, Hamid, he's also questionable. So also because it's a 4 o'clock game, be ready to have options. At wide receiver, it's a little easier to replace than at tight end, but just be cautious there. And I'm expecting a good game. And for more thoughts on that, I know my co-host and I on the Full Press Fantasy, we do our rankings debate every week, and we debated about the Seahawks heavily, because I think my co-host Brad has Metcalf receiver 5 this week, and I'm down at wide receiver 16. So we're quite different on them. So for more on that, check out the most recent episode.
All right. Thanks for that, Kyle. Devin, I'll hit it back to you. Give us another game you're most intrigued in.
All right, next game is going to be Cleveland and the Vikings. It's another
It's gonna be a
potentially
great
high-scoring game. I can't wait for this game. I mean, the Browns destroyed my Bears last week. It was very hard to watch. So, so I'm actually, I'm kind of intrigued. I mean, Kirk Cousins apparently is the best quarterback in the world now this season. I don't understand where this is coming from. I mean, he's looked pretty good throughout his career, but I mean, from a dynasty aspect, there's so many players in this game. Cook, could be available. If he's available, I'm not sure how great of a game he's going to be in for going against that Cleveland front. I mean, they're got a lot of talent on that side of the ball, and Madison stepped up very well last week. I mean, he looked great. So if you do have Madison, that's great for you guys. I mean, it's just, there's so much talent on this side of the ball. It's going to be interesting to see if OBJ is going to play this week a little more. I mean, I know he played last week, but if he's going to be a little more involved, maybe starting to get back to how he looked, 4 or 5 years ago. And then, of course, you got Jefferson, Thielen, everyone from that side of the ball. So I think there's a lot of good football to be played here. I think it's going to be a very good game, and another one that's going to have a lot of fantasy outcomes for a lot of people, and it will just being very high scoring, in my opinion.
So let me ask you this question about the Viking side, right? Adam Thielen is 31 now, and he still has. He just signed a. I mean, the dead cap hit for next year is 11 million. 2023 is 6 million. So the team's not cutting him either of those years. The only way he's not on the team if he is traded. I don't know if he has a no trade call. I don't see it in my notes anywhere, but KJ Osborne, everyone was hyping this guy a ton the past couple of weeks, and he hasn't really produced a whole lot the past week, especially. What do we see any real value, consistent value from KJ Osborne or anybody else outside of JJ and Adam Thielen, given that Adam Thielen still has potentially 2 additional years on his contract and he's not leaving the team unless the team trades him?
To me, I don't see a lot of long-term value there. There's always going to be an influx of either maybe a possible signing someone new, drafting someone. He's not shown me all that much. I mean, he had the very explosive play earlier this year, but I mean, Irv Smith is going to be back next year, and you never know what they're going to do there. Conklin is still there. You got Cook catching passes out of the backfield. So to me, I don't see a whole lot of upside there. Obviously, I mean, he's worth keeping on your dynasty. I wouldn't just cut him, but I don't see a whole lot of long-term value there for him. Just like you said, Thielen's going to be there, and Thielen and Cousins have a great connection with each other.
They do, especially in the red zone.
He's kind of, I would say he's kind of taken the Tom Brady, Mike Evans role where he just 2-yard touchdown, 3-yard touchdown, and vultures a lot of them from Cook. But, I mean, you can do that into your 33, 34 years old. So I don't see that going anywhere. I mean, Jefferson, I think the next couple of years, even probably this year into next year, is going to take over the true wide receiver 1 role. I mean, he kind of already was that last year. But I don't think Thielen is going to go anywhere for the next couple of years, like you said.
It might be one of those where by the time Thielen's gone, Kirk Cousins might also be looking at likely a much less efficient quarterback. Depends on who it is. I mean, if they get a free agent or if they draft someone in between, whenever that is. So you're also looking at that situation's nice now, but will it be when Osborne's ready to be the guy that gets volume? But I mean, you're like, if you sell him now, what are you going to get for him? Because I mean, yeah, he's produced well, but I don't think anyone really expects him to be the guy long term. Everyone knows, like what you're saying, Irv Smith, or even just the fact that I'm not that big of an Irv Smith guy, but it's more just the condensed offense, right? It's Jefferson, it's Thielen, it's Cook, and then everyone else. You get lucky with the week here or there, and everyone knows that. So I mean, you might be able to. I mean, get a third for Osborne. Maybe not everyone's even willing to give a third. So at that point, like you said, you may as well just hold him, and you've got these points. You've got this guy that right now the Vikings defense doesn't seem that great. So expect a lot of high shootout game scripts. I mean, I expected them to like run all over week 1. So the teams that they should be beating, they're not doing it as easily as would be expected. A lot of shootout type scenarios. Maybe he's the number 3 on any given week. Maybe it's whoever the running back. It's Tyler Conklin. But yeah. I know I think I'm going to start him in enough league. We have to start like 12 or 13 players. So at that point, like he's worth it in most deeper leagues like that. So yeah, definitely worth rostering for sure.
Yeah, I don't think he's
last year is next year, and Adam Thielen's last year assuming he doesn't get cut or traded, is 2024, the following season. So
Would you
Kirk Cousins is likely.
would you buy him for a third?
What was that?
Would you pay a third to grab Osborne?
No, I will
Like,
not.
if you
Osborne is off my list of players I'm targeting at all in Dynasty.
Yeah, I would agree. I wouldn't at the moment. He's more of a, if there's an injury, sell high once an injury happens, But as of right now, I don't think you can really cut him, but I don't really think you're not doing much by getting a third out of him either. You might as well wait and see if something happens.
I feel like there's more upside with the third round pick versus Osborne.
Sure.
Better.
Sure.
So Devin, would you buy him for a third? Like, would you give up a third to get him on your team?
I wouldn't. No. I could probably do a fourth, but as everything stands right now, I'm with Hamid. I don't agree that he's that worth that much at the moment. So I wouldn't be paying a third.
And that's kind of a tricky thing because there's a lot that fall into these cracks that are like, okay, they're, maybe here we're talking with, like if you could get a second for Osborne, you do it in a heartbeat, but no one's really willing to give that, right? And so, but there, you see a lot of receivers that are, oh, this guy's not worth a first, but you should expect way more than a second for them. So do you try multiple seconds? Like there's kind of ways to go about it. You're adding multiple picks, and does that change the equation? So those are kind of some ways if you're interested in buying Osborne, that might be the kind of the way it is. A third, give them a running back maybe. If it's someone who likes running backs like me, and that, they'll probably buy and sell any receiver for any running back. You can kind of flip that if that works.
All right, guys, and with that, we're going to get to the last segment of the show: buy low and sell high players. Kyle, I'll start with you. Give us one buy low and sell high player that you have for this week in Dynasty.
So this is, I guess, technically this is a sell, I suppose. So we'll start with that, and it's a follow-up from last week. So last week we were previewing the Texans-Panthers game, so about Davis Mills. And I mentioned that in the one Dynasty league I had him in, I was trying to shop him all week as soon as he was named the starter. Couldn't get a second for him. So I don't know. I noticed trades in some leagues where someone was able to get a second. So it seems like maybe if you found the right in the right league that was desperate enough for a quarterback that was starting, that you could maybe get a second. But from what I saw, that seemed their case. In a lot of super flex leagues, I mean, he was a third round rookie pick. I think with Davis Mills, we are talking from a super flex perspective. I feel like in single quarterback leagues, if it's deep enough, he might be rostered, but probably not worth very much in that. Assuming it's super flex, knowing that, okay, I drafted him with a third. Even if I could just value, I'd probably do it. But what I was able to do was actually, funny enough, talk about Kellen Mond. Someone that I prefer rookie-wise was Kellen Mond over both Trask and Mills. And I think Mond has this kind of added level athleticism, mobility. Like if he ever gets the start, he could probably more easily get rush yards and kind of be that dual threat quarterback. So for fantasy, a lot more intriguing. And in this particular rookie draft, he actually went ahead of Mills. But he's not starting. He's behind Cousins, who's doing great. Mills is starting. So I wondered if that was enough to flip the value. Apparently it was, because I was able to get Kellen Mond and for Mills in a fourth. So pick swap. The way I see it, I spent a third on Mills. So just to get a third back, then Kellen Mond. If I give up a fourth, whatever. But I'd prefer to have the asset of Kellen Mond. So I was happy I got the better pick. So I feel like that's about as good as you can get for Davis Mills. So I was willing to go there.
No kidding.
So that's just kind of that might be a sell high on Mills. So sell high doesn't always mean the peak, but like, I don't see him being the long-term guy in Houston. Whether they Hurts or they're drafting a rookie or signing a free agent, I don't think Mills is going to be the answer. I don't think he's going to keep starting once Tyrod Taylor's healthy. Once Tyrod's back, I'm assuming that's his job again. I mean, he was 2-0 as a starter, or sorry, he was 1 and he almost beat the Browns. It was 1-1 as a starter, but he hurt. So like I feel like you're just going to go back to Taylor, and then like Mills has to be outstanding right now, or else like for them to show that we build around you as the long-term franchise guy. Like this is his window. If he doesn't do it by the time Taylor's back, I don't know that he's getting another. I figured this is a kind of a sell high on Davis Mills, even though it's not for very much. But I also don't think he's worth very much.
All right, and Devin, how about you? Give us your buy low and sell high players.
So I'll start off with buy low, and for right now, I'm going to say AJ Brown. He's had a very less than stellar start to the year. Has barely broke over 50 yards in the first two games, and now he's dealing with an injury. So he's had not a great start. Obviously, he's one of the premier dynasty wide receivers out there. But if the situation presents itself, I think you can get him now at least a little bit lower than what you would have at the beginning of the year, probably by the time the end of the year comes. So if you're looking for someone to buy as of right now, it's definitely A.J. Brown. It's going to be a hard one. It's not a slam dunk that's going to take it's going to take a lot of capital to get. But just looking at what he would have cost you a month ago compared to what he is now, I think you can get him easily. Yeah. So, and I mean, he's still 23, 24 years old. To me, he's still a top 5 wide receiver in the dynasty rankings in my personal one. So,
no disagreement there.
Yeah. So I think it's a great opportunity right now. Like I said, some owners, I mean, you're never going to be able to get them. They're still going to look out, farther down the line. But some owners, they got recency bias. They're looking at the last 3 or 4 weeks. What have you done for me lately mentality? And situation has presented itself. So take a swing. You might as well.
It seemed like he started slow last year. As a rookie, he was also hurt early in the season. So, slow starts have kind of been a thing for Brown. And then, fantasy, really happy you have him.
And he's, he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys, too, that, I mean, he's plays every week. He will be out there all the time, but he's habitually hurt. He's, he reminds me of Julio Jones in that aspect where he's always questionable, but usually he's always going to be out there. So, you might just find an owner that's just sick of dealing with that. You know what I mean? So I think it's a good opportunity to take a swing at the moment. And then I guess if we want to switch gears here, I'll go ahead and give you my sell high, and that's mostly going to be for a super flex league, but it's Kirk Cousins. If you have Kirk Cousins in a super flex league right now, I think is the absolute peak of what you're going to be able to get for him. We already talked about him a little bit earlier. He's got 1 year left tied to this offense before they could move on. He's not going to have Jefferson or Thielen after that point. Right now, he's overperforming. I don't think anyone expected this kind of performance out of the gates from him. So right now, if you find a team that's really in desperate need of a quarterback, I think right now he's the best option out there that you can actually get quite a bit in return for.
And with that, I'll go with mine. And the funny thing was my buy low was James Robinson. That's not happening anymore. So I'm going to bypass that and say my buy low will be I had a few in mind here, but I will say my second choice would have been Allen Robinson. I mean, and Devin, to your point, a month ago, his value would be as a wide receiver 1. Right now, you can probably get him for a lesser value than that right now in Dynasty. So I think he is definitely a candidate, especially somebody who's not seeing that many targets. He only had 2 receptions for 27 yards against the Browns last week. So it is definitely concerning. His usage is concerning. Just it doesn't make much sense how he's being used. Before last week, Mooney and him both were tied in targets, 15 targets. But Mooney has but Allen Robinson does have a touchdown and go with that. So that helps him a little bit. But I would not be too concerned. It's Dynasty. He's not necessarily that old if you consider his age. So I think he is a prime candidate to buy low. And as Justin Fields gets better as a quarterback, progresses through his reads a little bit more, he's a little trigger happy with his legs. So if he can learn to be a little more patient and maneuver in the pocket a little bit more, and then let the route runner that Allen Robinson is develop his route and get open, I think that will help Allen Robinson as well, and also Justin Fields. So this is a buy low window for Allen Robinson. The sell high, Brandon Cooks. Disrespected as hell. I disrespect him all the time with my rankings. So I am sorry, but I think his value is not going to be. I mean, we talk about QB proof. We thought Allen Robinson was QB proof. We're wrong. There's only one quarterback running back, wide receiver, who is proof right now of QB. Brandon Cooks. The dude just produces, regardless of who he is, who had Davis.
True.
What's wrong with that dude? This guy be putting up over 100 yards, but he did. So I think this is your window to sell high while you can, because now at this point, I think the writing's on the wall that you can really sell the argument. Literally, he's QB proof. He's going to produce regardless. He's going to have 100 yards no matter who's throwing the ball back there. So I think this will be a great time to sell high and see what you can get for him. A first maybe if you can, that'd be great. Or get a young player, a Javonte Williams and a plus, like a Javonte in the second. I'd do that for in a heartbeat. And Kyle, I'm not going to ask you because I already know you would do it. I think put offers out there for Brandon Cooks. So at least put him on the trading block and see what you can get for him. You'd be surprised on the values that you can't see with players that you would not think go for that much. So, and with that, guys, we conclude the show for week 4 of the Dynasty Gambit. Guys, this was fantastic. As always, the co-host, Devin Deal at Devin Deal on Twitter, and our off-season co-host, who might as well just be a permanent staple of the show, Kyle Senra. You can find him on Twitter at Senra Says, and of course, Hamid Sandhu, your host, FFJunkie85 on Twitter. And please enjoy the game. Set your DFS rosters. Don't flex any Thursday night players in your flex. Wait, I already said that.
Yes. And flex your Monday night players. Conversely, right? Those are the guys Monday night and Sundays. Like those are the ones you want to put in your flex spots. Stretch those decisions out as late as you can once you have as much information. Speaking of information, we were talking to Adam Thielen. I did want to add something. I kind of forgot to mention it. So, you hear me, the guest coming in taking over on the show. I used to run this place. No. So talk about Adam Thielen, right? And like I think maybe mentioned him as a sell high last week, to be honest. But this was a trade that someone in one of my Dynasty group chats was talking about or this, I think maybe an offer that was sent to them. So Adam Thielen, 2022 second for Josh Palmer and a 2022 first. So down Thielen to Palmer for the pick swap of second to first.
Is it how early of a first are we talking to everything? A mid first?
Yeah, it's gotta be less. It's gotta be more than a late first though for me to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have specifics on how late or early that would be, but yeah, super flex 1.75 tight end premium, 0.25 points per carry. It's a little bit bonus scoring for different positions.
Mid first for me to pull the trigger on that trade. I do it, but it needs to be a mid first.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
And now that
also, guys,
we're in season, we can, the records are starting. We're only 3 weeks in, but you can kind of start to see where that first might end up. Like easier to project that now 3 weeks, and then it would certainly much more information than what we had 3 weeks ago. Right? When it was everyone was at 0-0, it's really tough to tell. Even though it's obviously another 14 weeks, or I guess to the end of the regular season for probably another 10 weeks, but. Still, like you kind of can get an idea. I guess be a distinction there. So that's just kind of an idea of what Thielen's going for right now.
Also, to end the show on the final note, Carlos Hyde actually in warm-ups, his shoulder wasn't feeling right, and because of that, they decided to hold him out. This is not Urban Meyer coming to his senses. This is Carlos Hyde saying, "Hey, my shoulder's not feeling too good." So, hey guys,
now,
enjoy the Thursday night.
James Robinson, like you won't be able to buy him low, but if he does bad against the Bengals with this opportunity, like tomorrow might be the best buy low chance if he doesn't perform tonight. So that might
Bengals are allowing only 78 yards rushing to running backs this season. So, I mean, averaging 78 yards. So that's not a whole lot. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting game. We'll find out, man. And with that, fellas, we will conclude our show. Have a great night and enjoy the game.